She finally finished the Momo wig from Dawn to Dawn, and now it's time for her to work on the Mau Mau wig. She finally finished it. It's up there. By the way, Lettuce did make a TikTok. I'll link it down below. Go follow her if you haven't. She's me posting her videos there too. Okay, so let's get into today's video. So you're doing a 10 pull and you don't get a 5-star. You do get a 5-star though. It's an honorary 5-star, and her name is Xiangling. Now, what do you get with Xiangling besides one of the best pyro applicators in the game? Well, Xiangling is going to be a polearm wielding pyro user who, in this video, we're going to talk about why she's so good with Mualani. Okay, so I think this is how I'm going to make my videos now. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to step back. I still got my microphone here. We still got a beautiful kind of background, right? I think that I like this. I think this is gonna be how I make my videos. Not with a green screen. I will make some videos with a green screen, but more like this. I like this kind of stand-uppy kind of one, right? So anyway, Xiangling. So real quick, what we're gonna do is that we're gonna look at how her kit works. It's not gonna take long. Then we're gonna look at why she's so good with Mualani, and then we're gonna talk about the build that I'm using in this video. So first off, her normal attacks, skip those. Second, Guoba. Her skill is going to drop Guoba, which is the cooking god. Guoba is going to bite a chili pepper, exhale flames, dealing pyro damage to enemies. Now, you might notice that on the enemies, they have the downward arrows, meaning that they are having a stat dropped. This is pyro resistance. This is going to be from one of her constellations, which we'll look at later on. Outside of that, that's all that Guoba does. He spits fire at enemies and gives energy over to Xiangling. That's really it. Guoba is also going to drop the chili pepper once he is done spitting fire, and whoever picks it up is going to get an attack buff. So remember to pick up the chili pepper. Now, her burst is going to be really what we want to look at. Okay, her burst, she's going to be spinning this pyronado, this polearm on fire around her. If we swap off the field, just like with Guoba, then the pyronado is going to stay and follow around our on-field character. This is why she is so good. Now you might be saying that there's a ton of other pyro characters that have off-field application. What makes Xiangling so special? And it is because her burst has no internal cooldown, or ICD for short. Now, to not get into the grittiness of it, to give a quick explanation, internal cooldown, ICD, is essentially how often an ability or an attack can apply the element. It is an internal cooldown. There's nothing on the screen. There's nothing that tells us in the character explanation of the talents and stuff what the ICD of an ability is. There are a couple of other characters that have no ICD partially. Xiangling, I believe, is one of the only characters that has a full no ICD on their burst. Beidou has ICD for a certain point of her burst, but her entire burst doesn't have the ICD, doesn't have the no ICD. She does have an ICD kick in at some point in her burst. Xiangling never has an ICD kick in, which means every single time that her attack hits an opponent, it will apply pyro, which is not normal. Okay, Xiangling's kit, we're never going to have another one like Xiangling because it is too broken. It is too strong. Mualani is a catalyst hydro character that is one of the first that we want to build a vaporize reaction out of. We want Mualani to be getting the vaporize reactions, not the opposite, whereas like Hu Tao wants to get the vaporized reactions, right? So we're using like Xingqiu or Yelan to put hydro onto the enemies, so that way Hu Tao can then get the vaporized. We want the opposite. We want Xiangling to put pyro on the enemies, so that way Mualani can get the vaporized reactions. She was one of the first vaporized-centric hydro characters created specifically for hydro onto pyro vaporized reactions, because all of her damage is so front-loaded into how we use Mualani's skill. We need to have a ton of pyro to keep up with Mualani wanting to vaporize. Now, in this team that you were seeing, being Mualani, Xiangling, Farina, and Xiangling, even though we have Mualani and Farina kind of competing for who's going to get the vaporized reactions, Xiangling's burst should apply enough pyro that Mualani will always be able to get a vaporized reaction. You can run a couple of other teams where you're going to be burning the enemy and then allowing Mualani to vape off the burning enemies. But with Xiangling, you really only need this one pyro character. You don't need another one or a way to set up burning to allow for Mualani to get consistent, reliable, and multiple. So in this particular team, Xiangling is going to be applying all of our pyro onto the enemies. The pyro name is going to be following Mualani around as we kind of go around the field with the shark, setting up the 3-hit proc thing for Mualani to then get the most out of her shark bite at normal attack post skill. We'll talk about Mualani later on, but Xiangling is going to apply all of the pyro onto the enemies so that way Mualani can get these vaporized reactions. Farina is also going to get a couple of vaporized reactions in there too, but we're mainly using her as a support in this instance for fanfare points, and then Xiangling is just making the enemies weaker, giving healing, things like that. The reason Mualani is going to be able to vape consistently is going to be from Xiangling. Now, to give a visual representation as to the having no internal cooldown, we are going to go to this area in Natlan where all of the enemies are standing in water. And we are going to use Xiangling's burst, and we're just going to kind of stand there. And you're going to notice every single time it hits an enemy, it is going to vaporize. Now, each enemy is going to have its own internal cooldown, but just know that by the time the Pyronado makes a full circle, it's going to hit the same enemy and vape multiple times off the same enemy. That should not happen. Right, that is happening too fast, where if her burst had an internal cooldown, you would not be able to get these vaporized reactions. And we could, especially if we were moving around and really focusing on getting it, it's still going to hit every single time for a vaporized reaction, which if it had an internal cooldown would not be possible. So that is how much pyro is being applied to these enemies. If we were to go into here with like Arlecchino and use Arlecchino's attacks, every single attack onto this enemy is not going to cause a vaporized reaction, right? You're going to have this time in between where even though her attacks are doing pyro damage, and even though the enemy has hydro on them, we're not going to be causing vaporized reactions because of the internal cooldown. Xiangling's burst skips all that. It just causes the vaporized reactions all the time, meaning that it is constantly, every single hit, applying pyro to the enemies. Mualani can cause vapes off of that for herself, increasing her damage. So that is why Xiangling is so good for a character like Mualani. Now, whenever it comes to Xiangling's constellations, really the one that is going to be the most important is going to be her C4, which is going to increase the duration of Pyronado by, I think, 40%. So it's just going to make it last longer. Outside of that, you don't need a ton of constellations on Xiangling, which you do get one of her for free. So like if you pulled her on this banner, then you should have at least C1. But C4 is going to be her most important for this particular team. And of course, C3 just to increase the level of, her Pyronado. So now we're going to look at the build that I had on Xiangling in this video. First off, her attack 1200, I need to get that up. Her elemental mastery 109, but most importantly, I did take her to level 80. Xiangling is a character that I don't use often because she's too strong. So I've had her at like level 60, level 70 for a long time. I finally took her to level 80, guys. Now, her crit split's going to be 47.4 over 183 with 247 ER. That 48% crit rate is a little misleading because of the weapon that I have on her, which is going to be the catch. It's going to increase her crit rate on her burst by 12%, so that's really 60. That does still need to get higher. The catch is phenomenal on Xiangling. The only weapon that I would say is actually better than the catch is going to be Engulfing, which is Raiden's signature. But if you don't have that, just use the catch. The catch is phenomenal. Just do the fishing and get it over with. R5 it. It's so good on Xiangling. For artifacts, we are using Emblem, which is going to be her best artifact set, especially in this team, because we want to have her burst ready off of cooldown. So we want energy recharge, but it's also going to increase the damage of her burst based on her energy recharge. So this is just a phenomenal set altogether. I would probably swap her crit damage circlet over to a crit rate circlet if I had one, but I do not have one because that's my Raiden's off piece, and this is essentially all of my Raiden's artifacts. Now that's going to be it for this video. Kuki has green hair. I need to re-dye my hair because it is faded to like white, and I will see you in the next one.